This, 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 this is me. The human voice is something we all need and use. It's functional. But when I lost my voice, I discovered how much a part of my sense of identity my voice plays. Listen, I know that it's perverse to speak in verse. An elder fella, a cappella, geriatric rapping, finding rhythm while he's tapping with his fingers on his thighs. When I finish, will you be clapping, I wonder? Maybe laughing, maybe crapping? Well, if I drive you to hysteria, there are folks here to take care of you. As I share with you this aria about why I speak in rhyme. I knew from birth what I would be. I knew the theater was the place for me. But when I first stepped upon a stage, I knew something was lacking. Talent. I absolutely sucked at acting. But I got good at audience attracting by being me on stage and telling my stories, my truths and allegories, making people laugh and cry, and making some friends wonder why a guy fairly shy suddenly liked public oratory. But telling stories wouldn't pay the bills, so I found thrills and modest glory by becoming a writer, and that went really, really, really well until it didn't. And I suddenly fell deep, deep, deep into some kind of hell. It was on April 9th, 2016. The day that dawned was gray, but I was free. Being a retiree, I had all day to play. So feeling good, I washed and dressed. I could hardly wait to eat. But then a wagging tail and imploring eyes said, "Doggy wants a treat." And then I knew she'd want to walk, but I was pressed. So I tried to talk, to explain to her why breakfast would be late. But nothing came. My voice, my lips, my tongue, my throat combined together to conflate, to violate, to strangulate, and ultimately terminate my voice. I start to shake and then I fall. I thrash and crash. And after all the jerks and twitches stop, I wonder, is this some kind of cruel joke? Or am I having a stroke? I can't say words. My arms don't work. I try to stand and go berserk. I flip and flop. I puke. I pant. I want to call for help, but can't. So out the door and down the hall, stoned on raging cortisol to emergency at Old St. Paul, where I seize again, so they call a doc, and I mime to him that I can't talk, that my arms don't work, and I can barely walk. So he takes a CT scan of my brain. But it fails to explain why this collapse, so profane that I can hardly sustain, has happened. I seize again, and the poor doc has to admit as I flip and flop through another fit that he hasn't a clue about what to do. And I wonder, will I ever speak again? I surrender all my wherewithal, strapped in a gurney in the hall, cold corridor of Old St. Paul. I feel trapped and isolated. And the poor doc, he feels lost and obligated to first explain and then to treat a problem that's just bringing him a defeat. And then suddenly there's a decision on a VGH admission where they've got a good clinician who can lead the inquisition into why there's been attrition in my voice. She is kind and oh, so gentle. And me, well, a little temperamental. Because the title and position of this consulting new physician frightens me. Her degree's in psychiatry. Psychiatry? For me? This just cannot be. What will people think if I start going to a shrink? What will people say? Oh my God, I wish this would just go away. She says, my limbic system's broken. And that's why I haven't spoken. She says the amygdala inside my head is turning all happiness to dread. And I'm like, amygdala? What the fuck is that? It's your fear thermostat, she says with nonchalance. It regulates your fight or flight response. Chris, think of this as a renaissance, not a nervous breakdown. She says I've got a complex malady, a form of high anxiety. She says I've got PTSD. What? Me? PTSD? Isn't that a soldier's malady? Not me, the chicken, the sissy, the anti-alpha male who's kind of prissy. Surely not me. Oh yes, she says, and worse than that, you've got FND, a neurological condition that accounts for the transition from good health to inhibition of my nervous system. It's FND, she says, that makes me seize, that brings me to my knees. It's why my arms and legs are weak, and why I can hardly ever speak, well, fluently anyway. Things are going to be different. She says that I should wait, that this isn't a checkmate. She says, oh, Chris, wait, you'll see, you'll adapt. That's easy for her to say. I feel trapped behind a wall of silence and handicapped. And there isn't any science. She says she can't offer me a cure, so there'll be no restitution. And the only possible solution to improve my elocution is to make a resolution to adjust. It's a must, she says. I've got to trust. And I wonder if I'll ever be who I was ever again. But at least it isn't cancer. And I finally got an answer. She says pills and psychotherapy will help me be, well, a different form of me. She blames the trauma of my past. She says with abuse, the die is cast. She says the memories and secrets I've kept deep inside could not, would not be denied. And oh my God, when she says those words, in my chest I feel so tight, because I know that she is right. To my soul, she's let in light, but her words fill me with fright, even though they stop the fight that burned for years within me. She says FND lasts forever. But with time, some symptoms may get better. I'm to commit to coexistence, to acceptance, not resistance. And she says she'll be my guide, that she'll be forever by my side. And oh, how I love that word, forever. My secrets haven't shocked her. I'm in love with my new doctor. I'm discharged awash in symptoms, with prescriptions and descriptions of probabilities and options of possibilities and cautions. I adore her. She helps me deal with my stutter. She keeps me calm and not aflutter. Sometimes I speak as smooth as butter, but just not for very long. And she doesn't use psycho-speak. I'm to see her every week. Talk therapy for someone who can't speak. Go figure. All my friends are mystified to hear how badly my tongue is tied. They ask me how it's come to be. I've got so much anxiety. But I don't like being asked. I do not want to talk about my past. But on the other hand, I've got, I decide that for my symptoms my condition's not for gossip. That's what I decide. But then again, I know I've got symptoms that I can't hide. So for true friends, and for you, I know I must confide in the reason for my condition. I explain it all began the day Mother One gave me away to the church, where all the nuns would say, the Virgin Mary was my mother. Yes, I am Jesus' brother. But then I'm fostered like all the others, but eventually there comes another. Connie is my mother number 2, and she does things no mom should ever do, and she does them almost every day. There's nothing I can do or say. All there is to obey and plan how I will get away. Like the doctor says, the die was cast. I've got scars from trauma past. Not easy to sustain, and a constant source of primal pain. What can I say, PTSD, FND? They're just letters. They don't mean anything to me. All the medical and psychological jargon just gives me a hard-on to escape drugs or liquor, whatever's quicker. But instead, I retreat to semi-isolation, Gabriola, where I find some consolation. There are days when I can speak, when my anxiety is weak. Otherwise, it's notes and rhyme, or mime. I have to use them all the time. And for my friends, I start a blog where I can log the ins and outs of my everyday, and they can read my posts, know what I'm doing, comment, leaving a brick or a bouquet. The greatest compensation, though, is when from home I have to go to a store or to a meeting, and I must talk or offer a greeting, and instead I block. The words don't come. All I do is spit and sputter, and everyone hears my dreadful stutter. But, the clerks and servers say, hey, I've got your back. It's okay. Don't feel rushed. Just take your time. And by the way, you're really good at mime. And they often touch me, usually right up here. And that touch really moves me because it makes it clear that disability triggers empathy. Everyone is really kind to me. In fact, my world has changed. And for the good, people acting as people should. My world's a much, much nicer place to be now that I'm a different me, blessed by disability. Once I had a best friend who suddenly went blind. And in defiance of his malady, he found himself inclined to do the things that sighted people do. To live his life unbarred and prove that he was living full. I was kind of his bodyguard. He bought paintings, sold at auction, blind. And he taught himself to ski, blind. And so after years of life without a voice, I thought of him and the degree to which he'd overcome his loss. And so I resolved to do something brave to honor him. That's why I'm standing here in front of you, using memory, rhyme, and rhythm to help you hear and see past my disability and getting a glimpse of all of me. I found my voice. But will you hear my words, or just how they are spoken? If I talk to you, will you try to understand? Or write me off as broken? See me, hear me, and remember, please, I am so much more than my disease. Now, using rhyme and rhythm's fun, and it can be handy too. It's letting me speak to you today, but it's not what I usually do. Most of the time when I'm with my friends and I want my turn to speak, I just say whatever the hell I want. And there's never ever a critique. So in the end, there's just one voice, the only voice for me that I want to hear, the only voice for me that makes things clear, the only voice, though a bit of a mess, I simply can't resist, the only voice for me that's true to being Chris. It's a voice that's hard to make and hard to hear, but it's my voice and part of me that I hold very, very dear. And so, if by chance one day you should see me in the street, say hi, and I'll reply, hi, nice to meet you. My name is Chris. Thank you.